I'd like to call this meeting, Munhall Council, to order, 7:10 p.m. Mr. Stevens, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. President, can I have a minute for a second?
You may.
Can I have a moment of silence for a longtime Munhall resident who touched more people's lives than anybody I know, Duke Tomasic? Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick announcement before we start into our regular agenda. We had an executive session prior to this meeting, which caused us to be a few minutes late, and that was to discuss some ongoing litigation. So with that, we'll move into preliminary announcements. Anybody with preliminary announcements? No? Roll call.
Councilman Dallas.
Here.
Councilman Shields.
Here.
Councilman Bodedian. Councilman Brennan.
Here.
Councilman Foss.
Here.
Councilman Ingalls.
Here.
President Lloyd.
Present. Okay, we have a request to speak to council, Patricia Brown. We looked for you last week, but you're welcome to come up this evening.
Yeah, you could use it for me last week. I did the online form and I thought it meant a regular council meeting.
It's fine, could you state your address, please?
Okay, Patricia Brown, 948 Burntree Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15236. 2718 Homestead Duquesne Road has been abandoned for about 15 years. There's some pictures. I brought new pictures this time. It is completely rotted inside. The water pipes were stolen many years ago and have never been replaced. It has open windows and doors, is filled with raccoons, sits only a few feet from my property, and has been repeatedly cited by the health department. The police were there on September 26, 2014, since intruders were in there again. The police told them they were not allowed to be in the house and they had to leave. I don't know who called the police, but when I looked at the house the next day, I saw that someone had been tearing the siding off the house. When I checked the back of the house, I could see that most of the siding was gone from there as well. Apparently, since they can no longer find anything of value inside, people are now stealing the siding to sell it for scrap. The raccoons inside of it are kind enough to visit my house regularly to provide the service of tearing up my roof. They did this 3 times in 2014 alone, so unfortunately I have to pay to have my roof fixed repeatedly. Here's the most recent invoice. In 2005, I called the borough to ask if you would put 2718 Homestead Duquesne Road on a demolition list. I was told it was on the list, but the borough would not be able to tear it down until the following year. After being told that same thing for the next 5 years, someone advised me that I have to go and speak at the council meeting to get something done. I spoke at the council meetings many times, starting in 2010, but each time I was told the borough had run out of funding, so it would not be torn down until the following year, but the borough never followed through. The former borough manager insisted there was no money available. As we all now know, that borough manager is now awaiting trial for stealing about $250,000 from this borough during the same years he was telling me there was no money to demolish this house. Last year, the Hayes Mansion should not have been on the demolition list. When the condemnation was rescinded, that was a good decision. But $19,000 of CDBG funding that would have gone to Munhall went back to the COG General Fund to be divided among several boroughs. So even more money that could have been used to demolish abandoned buildings like the one next to my property was lost by this borough. At last, the borough decided it was finally time to condemn 2718 Homestead Duquesne Road. I originally had been told that the demolition would probably be happening in the fall of 2014. Since it is fall, I thought I should check to see what was going on. I asked the current borough manager for a list of the houses that are on Munhall's CDBG funding request. There was no response. I then sent a formal right-to-know request and was told they would need to research their files to find out what structures they had requested funding for. After 16 business days, I finally received an email from the borough with a list of houses. Can you please verify tonight which structures are on your CDBG funding request for your authority?
That's perfect timing.
Yeah, that's it. I didn't think I made
What was emailed to you on the following, 1329 Market Street, 2718 Homestead Duquesne Road, 539 East 9th Avenue, 630 East 9th Avenue, and 305 Homestead Duquesne Road.
Okay, so you have a total of 5, is that right? Well, you know, I didn't just send that request to Munhall Borough, I also sent it to the county. And according to the county, there's another property on there, so there are actually 6. So, were you not aware of that?
Don't know who you're talking to at the county. This is a list that we submit to Steel COG on which we get the CDBG dollars to.
Okay. Well, here I have my right to know request from the county. And it states that in response, here are the properties that are on the CDBG funding request.
Can we get to the chase?
The Hardin place was added on.
Right. Hayes Mansion was added.
Who?
Yeah,
Hayes Mansion's on the list.
We gotta put it back. We gotta put it back.
I didn't vote for
That has to be
that on
wrong, we gotta put it back on.
there.
Well,
Maybe it was never
Can we
taken
get to
off.
the chase? I mean,
I see it on here,
well,
right?
that's
We
pretty much.
resent
I
it,
didn't
we
put
never
that
put it
on
back
there.
on.
Basically, we want to know, you have $50,000 in funding now, and why can't you tear the house down now?
It's on the list to be torn down, sir.
excuse me.
Yeah, so, but I
You
got
told us for
this.
10 years it's on the list.
No, we didn't, no,
Not 10.
to be accurate, we didn't tell you for 10 years that it was on the list. And there was a problem last year, and things got moved. And we didn't have more houses backed up on the list so that they could substitute. We've subsequently cured that problem so that we have more than enough property in the event that something gets taken off the list. For instance, like the mansion, because apparently it has historic status and it has a historic plaque. And I resented the letter that said that Mr. Ballas and Mr. Lloyd were the ones that damaged the Hayes Mansion. Ma'am, I never damaged the Hayes Mansion. And for the record, Joe Ballas and I didn't damage the Hayes Mansion, and we don't want to demolish it. It's those people that, it was the Hayes family that let that mansion go into disrepair, not Dan Lloyd, just for the record.
Just for the record, I never said that you damaged the Hayes Mansion. What I said was you were the only two that voted to destroy it, and everyone else voted the other way.
I didn't destroy it. We didn't do the damage to it. It fell into disrepair by the people that owned it, the people that came back and said, it never should be that way. No, it shouldn't. But don't blame Munhall Council. We didn't do anything
To
to...
demolish it, not to destroy it.
Well,
Big
it's pretty much the
big
same
difference.
thing.
What we want to know is, you have the money now, why can't you start tearing houses down now?
We actually... Go ahead, Rob, answer that.
The contract will actually be executed by the Steel Valley Council of Governments once it secures bids, and whatever the low bidder is at that time. We anticipate that to occur sometime in spring of next year. The holdup right now is that we have 2 properties, the 2 on 9th Avenue, that should be demolished, and and there's a camp that's saying, even those in the county, that we can't touch them because there might be some historical significance to those dilapidated structures. We're going through a process right now of identifying, trying to get in there, take pictures, get an engineer to structurally tell us they're unsound. Once we get that sign off, all 5 of those structures will be put on the bid list of the Steel Valley Council of Governments. So we're spending the money, not money.
Well, the 3-bedroom apartment one, that one is clear.
It's maybe clear, but it's in a historical district right now, and the county is putting the red flags, because it's their money saying, oh, no, you won't. Not unless you get further documentation that these structures are unsound and perhaps should be torn down. We don't have that clearance yet.
You do have the clearance on 630 East Ninth Avenue.
According to our sources, as of 3 weeks ago, we do not, we need to come up with additional documentation to further demolish it because of the historic district.
According to my sources.
Well, you know what, I don't want to,
I'm sorry, but
I don't want to engage, your time's up, man. Your point's
I
well
do-
taken,
I
the
do
house
not
is
think
on the
it's
list,
fair.
it will be part of the contract, and the house will be demolished.
Well, I have something to say, and that is that I spoke to Barbara Frederick of the Historical Museum Commission, and she said that 630 East Ninth Avenue is clear. She also said that the reason that there's a holdup on all of the other houses being demolished, $50,000, is because Munhall has not submitted the paperwork.
We don't
For
submit
the
the
other
paperwork,
building,
the contract.
one building is holding up everything else from being demolished, one. And it's because it's in Munhall's court, and that's what my sources told me.
Now, your sources didn't tell you the full story. The other part of the story is we are taking, as I mentioned to you, trying to get into those buildings. We don't own them. We don't have a right to get into them because we're a government. We're trying to locate the owners through our code office to get into the building, to take the pictures, to do the structural analysis, and to make our case that this needs to be demolished. That's the other side of the story that you didn't get. It's on the list, man. It's gonna be demolished. We want to do all 5 at one time.
Well, actually, there's 6, right? Because
No.
actually, it wasn't just the county, but also Ann Lewis that told me there are actually 6.
Hardin County's not on the demolition.
Are you worried about the 6, or are you worried about the one that you've been worried about for 10 years? I mean, do you live next door? I thought you lived next door.
I do have 2 houses in Munhall. My daughter is in one, and the other one we rent.
Which one do you rent?
We rent 2714.
Okay. Well, your house is on the list, and it's gonna get demolished.
I've been told that for 10 years, but thank you very much.
Okay. Move to approve the September 17th, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Motion. Motion by Mr. Shields, second by Mr. Engels. Discussion. I found some things that need corrected on
I
there.
think we may have caught those. We have the,
I have actually 4, I think I had 3 or 4 corrections to the minutes.
we may have caught those since they were sent out yesterday, so go ahead.
My copy. I have a copy.
See a big sign?
Page number 2, under where it says Ray Pondus and right before Donald Greshman, it says manager is not properly bonded and the borough has large loss runs. It should say has large uncovered losses. That was 1. 2 was on page 3, under the engineer's report. Lindsay, I don't want to speak for you, but I kind of heard it as no immediate conditions forcing
Where you live?
a collapse of the building.
I'm someone, I can't.
In the second sentence? It says there are no forcing issues to collapse, and I think you said there were no immediate conditions forcing the building to collapse.
what we
think it more pertains to when we were discussing how the portion group has fallen into it and now been removed.
Right, that's correct. You
Yeah,
said that,
so maybe it needs to add, portion has fallen in and it has been removed. From the inside, forces from the inside.
okay, this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
from the
yeah.
inside
Yeah, I like
causing
that.
the collapse of the building.
Yes.
Third item was under police, 647 calls, 667 reports, I think it's both 647. Flipped, 677.
667 calls, 647 reports.
And that was all I had.
Him, Joe, Kitchen.
Where's he at?
So do we motion to accept the minutes as amended? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Unanimous.
Someone got a hand up back here.
Excuse me, Mr. Lloyd,
Yes,
you missed,
I did. Number 5, public comment on
Number
agenda
6.
items, right?
number 6,
Okay, it's 6.
public comments on agenda items.
Right.
Okay.
Well, on my document, I'm sorry, it's 6, but yeah, it is,
It's
we
6
missed,
on
I missed
ours,
that.
Oh,
But you're welcome to the
You're
public.
president of
Okay,
council.
before I even get started, why don't we turn on these microphones? When we sit back there and you guys talk, we don't know what you're saying. They're not on.
I don't even have
Or you're not
It's on.
talking
Well,
into
then put 'em in a
them.
speaker.
You can hear me, can't you?
Well, you can hear me also. Number 4, adopting a resolution to, should that not come before the planning commission? This acquisition of a parcel on York Street, should that not come to planning commission first?
It should, but it doesn't have to.
Oh, it doesn't?
For president, we did, it doesn't have to come.
Oh, it doesn't?
Doesn't have
That's my question.
Doesn't have to.
All right.
I can just about guarantee, Greg?
Yeah, I'm sorry, which did she, because I was.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, but
Which did she ask for? I didn't hear.
Number 4.
Number
This
4.
is in relation to the Allegheny County.
Allegheny County.
Oh, no, that's not.
It doesn't have to come
No,
up.
Doesn't have to.
No, that's a
Okay.
county-run program. The only thing required is that we approve it, and then it's the county-run.
Okay, well, we've had so many, especially from Munhall Gardens, come to us in that regard.
They can, but they don't have to.
They can, but they don't have
We
to.
go there for advice sometimes, then we come over here and it kind of goes back and forth, but we kind of knew what we were doing on this one. and
Uh-huh.
we just did it.
All right, good enough. Number 6, I don't think I'm stupid, and a lot of us back here, an explanation of what this means? Approving intergovernmental cooperation agreement, established regional uniform construction code. We don't know what it really means. Could you explain that to
Yeah,
us?
well, I drafted the ordinance. The Uniform Construction Code, which this borough follows and most municipalities follow, provides for and requires an appeals board. So if someone is dissatisfied with something, a ruling that the zoning officer makes or some construction ruling, you have an avenue of appeal to address that. And the code requires that the board be comprised of many different individuals who come from different backgrounds and requiring education. If they want an architect on there, they want an engineer, they want someone in the construction trade, so you have a very knowledgeable board. Well, it's very difficult for many municipalities to find members with those credentials willing to serve on the board. So what has come about is this regional board. All these municipalities join together and say, look, let's just, among all of us together, we can come up with a board that meets all this criteria with these professionals, and we'll share this board. So we have these professionals available to hear an appeal
To
regarding
help
uniform.
Boomer, in other words.
Well, it's not to help him when when someone's unhappy with a ruling he makes, there has to be an appeal board that can consider his decision. So all these communities are going to share this appeal board so that we can find the appropriate professionals to serve on the board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That resolves our questions
Okay.
right here.
Mr. Havrilla.
Yes, just on item 7,
Stand up.
are we into the future here? It's 2017 for the minutes. It's actually 2014, you might want to put that in an amendment on your minutes.
Mine says 2014.
Mine says 2014 and
The
2015.
one I asked is 2017. I'm talking about the front page.
Roman numeral.
On the numeral side.
Numeral number 7 on the front page.
You're right.
That was the regular minutes.
Oh,
I was looking at it differently.
I'm looking back at most of
We just want to make sure people actually read that, so.
this. You're on it, Dick. You're on it.
Dan, just one more correction on minutes. Let's get the guy's name right finally. Number 8, motion to appoint Steve Shupenka, not Japunka. S-H-U-P-I-N-K-A, Steve Shupenka as Munhall Borough representative.
We will have that reflected. Thank you.
Here we go.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
All right. Name and address.
Donna Gresham, Munhall, PA. I always give you my address, but nobody sends me gift cards to keep me away from these meetings. So, anyway, motion 1. In order to contribute to this plan, does it have to be deducted from the paycheck?
Yes.
Okay. Motion 2. What do we think the cost from the borough will be for this?
Anywhere from $8,000 to $16,000 per year.
I thought we didn't have
And there's nobody in the borough that can do this position?
This will be contracted out on a temporary basis. We will be required to have at least 1 year. We will be getting some consultation in from the state to help existing staff on QuickBooks, but we have an immediacy to address a serious problem right now.
Okay, so this is, but nobody can do it right now in the borough, like the borough manager couldn't do it?
With all the other responsibilities, not in a very good, not very accurate now.
Okay, thank you, that's all I needed was an answer for that.
Get the job with Barbara.
With the combination of motion 7, 9, and 10, what will our balance be in the bank statement balance be, once all these bills are paid this evening?
The 2014 MMOs essentially have been paid but have not been formally authorized. So that's already out there. We will have $250,000 of Act 205 money to substantiate some of the 2015 MMOs. With the expenditures now, and our bank balance probably right now is about $700,000.
700,000.
We still will have receipts coming in from earned income tax, RAD money, reimbursement from PennDOT, and some from the conversion of 911. We will receive about another $70,000. So more money's going out than money's coming in, but it's going to be tight toward the end of the year.
What's the RAD money, Bob?
It's about $35,000 a quarter. A quarter. So we should have one more quarter.
Okay.
And under the miscellaneous bills, what is considered all under the miscellaneous bills?
You have a quarterly payment of a workman's compensation fund of roughly $140,000. $50,000 also paid to the Fireman's Relief Fund, and some other insurance payments take up a good lion's share of that 209.
Okay. And has the library funding been paid yet this year?
That's been partial, we paid, that's part of this too, thank you. Excuse me, $50,000 of, a partial payment was made. That's in the 209, 50,000 of that.
50,000, and we still are gonna have to make another payment to them?
Balance of about 70.
70. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Comments on agenda items?
Real quick, Mr. Wood.
You have to come to the podium and state your name and address, even though we know you.
Give me your address, maybe you'll get a gift card.
Well, you get more than Scott Stevens, so the combination of what you're voting on today is $364,700 $2,010.28 plus the total from 10, which is $228,066.19. That's the combination, that's what you're gonna be voting on tonight.
To actually pay.
To pay.
Right.
So that's like, and then you have $700 some thousand left
After all this.
after this, and then you have 2 more months then
Correct.
to pay. Thank you.
Anybody else? There's only a few people left in the room that haven't spoken.
Ray?
If not, we will move on and take reports from borough officials. Mayor?
If you'll excuse me, I'll remain seated. I have a thing that I'd like to pass around, that came in the mail, and maybe some people will, it's from Penn State, who will be interested, and just read it, if you're interested, just fill it out. Sunday, yesterday, First Hungarian Reformed Church for Homestead, which is on 10th Avenue, Munhall, celebrated their 110th church anniversary. And I attended the service, and I presented them with a plaque with, addressing their 110 years of service, thanking them. And I just wanted to know over the area that this is one of our churches, and 110 years is quite a milestone. And I congratulate them on it, which I did with the presentation of the flag. Other announcements, and there's a few, and they come from a lot of places. Toronto Heights, inviting you to November 11th, Veterans Day. November 11th, Veterans Day is going to be held also in Slippery Rock, and I don't know why they sent me that. What, you got that, Pat? But don't forget, Still Valley Veterans Day program, of which tomorrow there is a meeting at 1 o'clock. Ray, you here?
What? I quit that. I don't go there no more, Ray.
You didn't show up last week, I know that.
I don't go there. Not involved in nothing.
Okay, it's November 7th, Friday, at 8 a.m., that's when the program starts. It's Still Valley's Veterans Day program, which is excellent, one of the top ranked in the state. And you're certainly all invited to come and attend and take part in this beautiful service ceremony. So that's November 7th, Friday. Program actually starts at 8:45, but you're welcome to come and participate. Some other little things. Our Halloween parade naturally is the 25th, that's Saturday at 3 o'clock. Up on Main Street near the First Commonwealth Bank, we line up. Then on the 30th, naturally, flyers out, Devil's Day, Devil's Night. I'd like all of our security people, our safety people, to keep their eyes open that night. And then the following night, October 31st, from 6 to 8, in the 5 communities, which you all have flyers on Munhall, Homestead, West Homestead, Whitaker, and West Mifflin, we will have our trick-or-treat night. That's that one. Now, I would like to report that on the 19th of October, the meeting conducted by Representative Gergley, inviting representatives from the state, Jay Costa, other executive officials. Also, the state representation, Dan Cessna, was there. He's the main dog. And we had people show up from different communities, which I appreciate. Mr. Lloyd was there and took part. He showed up. I had a lot to say. I had a lot to say to the state. I had a lot to say to everybody regarding that flyover. And by the way, yesterday, day before, I presented, hopefully, well, I shouldn't say this. I presented the next governor, let's say it that way, a letter regarding the flyover bridge with a dog leg in it, which is completely a safety hazard, and everybody knows about it, and all of them, including the CEO from the county, all of them know my feelings, and it was all good yesterday. Well, we're gonna wait until the transformation, and Greg will probably need you very bad, when we'll see what action is taken once we get a bit of a change. And all I'm gonna say about the future is there's other things, the borough owns the bridge. So therefore, everybody says fix it. Well, you know, we don't have $12 million to fix a bridge that is a definite safety hazard. Are they waiting for someone to be killed down there? What in God's name? We've had accident after accident, we probably have had 70 accidents down there, and major accidents with trucks. And while we were there, as Mr. Lloyd can affirm, while I was talking, a truck got hung up on the dog leg while they were all standing there. Gee whiz, what a coincidence, huh?
Hey, but you've been arguing about that bridge for 40 years. Why don't you change your tune?
Yeah, and we'll get something. Yeah.
Oh, man, Ray, I'm tired of listening to that already.
Well, thanks for the comments, Ray.
You're welcome.
You know, I appreciate it.
Jesus Christ.
14 years.
Yeah, well,
I've been
broken
at
records,
it.
you're worse than an old lady.
Thank you for that, too.
Oh,
I don't
man.
want to tell you what you're worth.
I don't care what I'm worth, but I don't get on the same subject for 30
You
years.
don't even belong to talking.
I don't even want to talk
Shut
to
your
you.
mouth.
Change, yeah, you're right. Talk about the bridge.
Mr.
Oh, don't
Clemens,
bother
this
me.
isn't your report, that's the mayor, have a little respect.
I don't have any.
I know,
You don't
You're
have any
welcome.
but
respect.
pretend.
I don't even want to pretend for you either.
I understand that. You
I
do
understand that
you know,
too.
You know, we
Have
may
some
have to
board up there
remove-
too. So we understand each other.
Would you like to leave?
No, I'm gonna sit here. This is comedy hour for me.
Would you like to leave for
No.
the comedy hour?
This is my
I'll
comedy hour
arrange you
for the
in a hurry
month.
here.
Yeah. Don't worry
Shut your
about it.
mouth. Anyway, getting back to the report, and there are things that have gotta happen. Otherwise, the borough has the option of doing things. We will do things, even if I got to, you know, I'll be presenting council with my thoughts on it in the near future. And we will get something happening down there. That's all I gotta say. That is something. Let it go. And thanks for your comments. One other thing I'd like, again, I know it's on the agenda, I believe it was, for that stop sign on Center and on Caroline to be installed. Again, too, is a problem, and it should be in place there, because all the signs are up, going all the way down, but there. Yeah, that's a problem. And in the winter, once you get a little snow on there, you know, as you go over the hill. With that, I'll defer, and I'll say that's the end of my report at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't believe that is a motion on the agenda. It was on the agenda at the work session, or last month, and it was tabled.
I'll wait for it to go back on the agenda.
You can ask under other business.
I will do it.
Okay, solicitor.
Thank you. First, I already spoke on your items for consideration. Number 5, motion to advertise the ordinance. I'm sorry, number 6 is the one I answered the question about, so I've already talked about that. I prepared the ordinance, and that's ready for advertisement. Of course, you couldn't act on it until next month. Number 5 is an ordinance for the land bank, authorizing Munhall to join the Tri-Cog Land Bank which you'll consider next month. There's still some missing information about that, and I ask you to review or revisit if you haven't my October 8th memo, which talks about that information, something you want to think about before next month, and you would approve that to make sure we have all the information we need so you can make an informed decision on that. Next, I'm dealing with the attorney at the waterfront regarding the pump station down there and the ownership of that and the maintenance of that. That's an ongoing issue. We're now involving the authority. The authority feels that it needs to own it, it has to maintain it, and apparently the permits are consistent with that, so that's ongoing as well. The owners of the waterfront want some sort of written document which confirms the ownership and maintenance responsibilities, because they have been maintaining it because no one else is, and it's absolutely necessary for the functioning and operation of the waterfront. So that's an ongoing issue. I'll keep you updated on that. I did review the proposed agreement. It was actually an outline of agreement. I didn't get the actual agreement from Bookminders, which is the accounting service. I found a number of concerns that I had. They did respond, and that's an ongoing process, and there's a motion on the agenda about that as well, subject to continued negotiation by the borough manager and final legal approval by me. That will be your items for consideration number 2, so I'm watching out for, so making sure we get a fair agreement. I sent a letter again to Gary Furman regarding the 19th Avenue Playground property. He's not responding. Went out on October 9th. You should have a copy of that available. I'll give him another few weeks, then we're going to have to decide what we want to do next. Again, this is the deed that he was here, and he took possession of the deed that was executed by the borough. He paid for the property, and he's the rightful owner, but he hasn't recorded the deed, so we're continuing to pursue him to get that done. And then lastly, recall at the last meeting, Mrs. Ballas was here, and there are also members of our planning commission and citizens spoke about the possibility of this council considering the enactment of an ordinance which would be a total ban on extraction of natural gas, fracking, that type of thing. I spoke about that at some length because I'm familiar with this as a borough solicitor. I had some concerns about the legality of that. So since then, I've done some more research to look and see, because I was provided with a list of communities that supposedly did ban that. And I know the city did it in 2010. I went on their website and they have subsequent legislation ordinances on there that are regulating it, which seem to permit it. So that was confused about that. I have called into the city solicitor's office to find out what the current status is, whether they still indeed have this ban or they change it. I just want to make sure I'm informed of what they've done and why they did that. And then I also was asked to take a look at Murraysville. There was a woman here that suggested I look at Murraysville, so I went online and looked at their ordinance. They don't ban it, but it's an ordinance that actually regulates it and authorizes it. So I'm trying to determine, and because I told you, I've always had this concern about whether we can do that, and I pulled up my old research file, which I had used. The other thing I did too is I called the Public Utility Commission, and I finally found the right contact person for someone in Harrisburg, because the Public Utility Commission regulates the state law with regard to drilling and extraction of gas and fracking and so forth. As we know, there is a state law which preempts the field to a certain extent. So I wanted to see their view and talk to them about that. And they're also responsible for and are able to provide advisory opinions to local municipalities about their ordinances. So again, another good source. And unfortunately, I don't have answers. It's hard to get responses sometimes from these other government entities, but I have these inquiries out there so I can give you full information. And in looking back at this, the one thing I did find again, and I had research on this from when I prepared a draft ordinance for this borough, which would regulate it, wouldn't totally ban it, which I thought was probably the better route to go. But if you do want to totally ban it, I want to find out if you can legally do it, which I had concerns about. And one of the cases that I had found, one of the controlling cases that I had researched some time ago, was Huntley versus Huntley and Huntley, which is a drilling company, versus the Council of Borough of Oakmont.
was an appellate case from the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And this goes to the preemption doctrine, which I have talked about. We know that the state has created legislation that regulates gas well drilling. And it's clear, whatever they've regulated, we cannot regulate in that area. And it's limited what we can do. Mainly, we can regulate where it goes. And a quote from that case, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but what it talks about, under the preemption doctrine, what that does is establishes a priority between potentially conflicting laws that may be enacted at the state level and then at our municipal level, which is a lower level. And so what that means is that local legislation, meaning the borough ordinance, cannot permit what a state statute or regulation forbids, and it cannot prohibit what state enactments allow. And so this is some of the case law from a Supreme Court case opinion that I have that caused concern in my mind. So I wanted to amplify more some of my answer from last month from those citizens. So I don't have a final answer on that, but these are why my concerns were raised at the last meeting. I still have them, trying to go right to the source with the PUC and see who indeed still has this potential total ban ordinance. And by next month, I'm going to have a final answer on what I think and see who really has it and see what the PUC says. But I just wanted to give you further information on that because I know the Planning Commission was very concerned about that and many of the citizens, including Mrs. Ballas. So that's the latest information. I'll report again next month and bring that to a conclusion, and council can decide what it wants to do. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Borough Manager.
Just a very few items. And Lindsay will probably speak to this, but Lindsay and I did meet with PennDOT a couple weeks ago regarding the Safe School Route project. We will be getting reimbursement on almost 100% of our engineering costs that we've incurred since 2011. That's in the process right now. At the next meeting, we will request proposals officially to select a auditor for our 2014 general fund books. We will, before the end of the year, need to appoint or reappoint a delegate, an alternate delegate to the Southwestern Allegheny County Tax Collection District. And lastly, a good part of the time between now and the next meeting will be the formulation of the 2015 budget. We'll be getting input from the department heads as well as council chairs. We will schedule a number of public workshops as well as discuss it at council meetings, and the goal is to have a preliminary budget by Thanksgiving and then have it prepared for public view up through December 8th, which will be our first meeting in December, at which time I would hope that we would adopt it. Legally, we have to have an adopted full budget by December 31st. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Bob? If not, thank you, and we'll move on to Lindsay, engineer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to fully update you on the Safe Routes to School project. We did submit 2 sets of drawings for PennDOT's review on the technical design. That's the same design that I forwarded to all council via email. I anticipate that they'll review that and provide any comments or revisions that they have. In the meantime, we're working on finalizing the right-of-way plan, the ENS plan, and submitting that again for their review. Those are the other supporting documents that we have requested. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
No questions? Thanks, Lindsay. We'll move on to Bob, Public Works.
I gave you a copy of September and October reports. And that's all I really have. Anybody have questions?
Are we gonna have any leaf cleanup schedule?
Yeah.
What is it gonna be posted when you're gonna go around? How are we gonna do that?
We normally just do it on a daily basis. Never really post it.
And I did want to ask you about the catch basins. We'll be addressing those.
Yeah,
in accordance with our mandate.
Beginning of November, probably taking here for a week or so.
November.
Yeah, first week of November.
Okay.
My question.
Yes, Mayor.
What about the street sweeping?
Well, I kind of was
So we're gonna get that in?
referring to that in combination with the catch basins.
Have we swept the streets this year? No.
I can address, I spoke to Ann Lewis the other day on the agreement, and we hope to get that in certainly before the weather gets better.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on, police chief.
Yes, Mr. President, you have a copy of my staff report. I'll be brief. 626 calls for service, 626 incident reports. Every call we went on, needed a report for the month. 46 arrests, 102 citations issued. We currently have 2 members of the department who were injured. One who's working light duty was an on-the-job injury. Another who is off, may be off for quite some time for a non-work related injury. We're not gonna know for another 6 weeks how long he's gonna be off. So it's leaving that a little short. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Fire chief, Matt.
Yes, thank you. I believe I gave you all a copy of the report. You've already had it in your packets. 58 calls for the month of September. As I talked about last month, it was 18, I believe, natural gas calls that one night. It was a busy night. Excuse me. A couple other items of note. Last month, we held a emergency vehicle operators course. I had 14 drivers go through that course. That course talks about the laws governing driving vehicles, the liabilities and so forth, and finishes with a practical portion where they set up a course. You have to drive the vehicles through the course. So it's very helpful, and all our drivers are required to complete that course. So we had 14 drivers who completed that, so we have a good month. We have that seminar coming up on Saturday. The gentleman coming in from out of town that talked about last month. And the only other thing I have is for the year, I did the numbers. So far, year-to-date, 360 calls was Bureau of Fire up through September. Last year, just so you know, was 350 total. So we're already 10 calls ahead of where we were last year, and we have 3 months to go. So it's been pretty busy.
Anything that's caused that, you think, Matt, or just?
There's a combination of a whole bunch of, quite a few things. I think the switch over to county, the 911 dispatch did increase the call volume somewhat, I'm guessing about 15%, mainly because a lot of times before calls would come in, the police would go, get sent to that call, and they would determine, now we don't need the fire department. Well, now with the county, they dispatch everything. So no matter what it is, they send us. They send us along with the police, along with the EMS. Every accident. Right, every motor vehicle accident, you name it, they do it. So now the police get on scene and they'll cancel us, but we've already been dispatched, so it's already it's already an additional call.
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. And that ends my report, sir.
Thanks, Matt. Okay. Mr. Cannon is not here.
He's not here. Everyone should have a copy of the code enforcement reports, one page, for the month of September into October. 3 building permits were issued. There were 13 occupancy inspections, 7 code enforcement, and letters of violation were sent out on 2 related to vehicles, 1 related to weeds. Mr. Cannon attended 11 magistrate court hearings. Some residents have called regarding some green signs that have been posted in properties that were vacant, abandoned, or blighted. We have roughly 120 of those. Half of those have been posted, stating to the neighborhoods that those particular properties are in violation of certain codes. They are being addressed, and the code officer, along with the management, is working to resolve those blighted problems and issues. There still has to be a number of other signs that will go up, and those will be going up on structures that are blighted but occupied.
Thanks for the answer, because I had some questions.
No, do they go up on properties too that are vacant that we don't know who?
I haven't seen all
I
of
had a
them.
question today, a guy's probably gonna be writing a letter in to you and Boomer about Ravine Street, he'd like to purchase the property where that sign is next to him.
I would invite him, I would be more than happy to talk to him, to attend our vacant property meeting, and those things are being discussed.
I can give you his name, I was.
Okay, the property meeting is October 27th in the evening, 6 o'clock here. This will be our third in a series of blight meetings discussing what we can do, what individuals can do, and that's moving along pretty well. Again, the reason for the signs were basically to alleviate neighbors' fears that nothing was being done on specific properties that were in violation, or they may get a citation saying they're in violation and they point to other property, and now they'll know that those other properties indeed have been cited and or will be going to the court for resolution.
You want to tell these people what to do, I don't know. If he goes down to the county, it costs a lot of money.
Well, it doesn't go to the county initially, it goes to the local magistrate. Anywhere that you see one of these green signs posted, these people have received citations in the mail, probably 2 or 3 times previously, but it's to also let the neighbors know that we're doing something about it.
What about the person like?
Their own places where they're in the house. Still had nothing to do, it had nothing to do with the sign.
No, I understand, I'm just, when they first seen the sign, I didn't know what it was about.
Right.
I did, but they did.
Yeah, they need to call, or they need to call the code enforcement officer and see or review what the particular violations are that caused that sign to be posted.
And also, if you look at items for consideration number 4, that's one of the programs, that's an opportunity for adjacent property owners to acquire abandoned, dilapidated homes that are tax delinquent through this county program. That has to come through us first, that's a step here, we're approving it. Then they pay the county, and the county then gets them good titles so they can own the property. So like this gentleman that Rob asked about, he would be potentially eligible, because he's a neighbor to that property, to also participate in this program, although we're limited. I think we only have 2 a year is all we're eligible for, fortunately, because that's a good program.
What if the bank took over one of the properties that has a sign on, that the sign is
That's
posted?
their problem, sir.
Well, the bank will fix it if they own it, because the bank has money, and I have found them generally to be responsive. You just have to find the right person. They will pay to have someone come out and correct deficiencies. They're usually a good owner.
So does the borough know that the bank took the property over?
Yeah, it'll be listed, we'll know that in the records. The problem that's happening a lot more often is the banks are proceeding through mortgage foreclosure, and when we get to the final step, they don't take ownership because they don't want to take on that burden. They realize it's better just to walk away. And we're seeing that happening more commonly, which is unfortunate.
Thank you.
Sewer Authority, Mr. Perrick is not here, so with that, we will move into items for consideration.
Number 1, motion to adopt resolution 2014-4, establishing and approving the defined contribution pension plan known as 457D for the borough manager.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Shields, second by Mr. Ingles. We did discuss this in our work session. This was something that was promised as part of the compensation package. It's at no cost to the borough. This is all voluntary contribution, but the documents had to be filed and a motion passed. So any questions on the motion? With that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Carries unanimous.
Thank you. Motion number 2, motion to contract with a temporary financial bookkeeping service at terms and costs negotiated by borough manager and review by borough solicitor prior to execution. Comment on this?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Brennan, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Shields. Discussion. Good job.
Yeah, I wasn't here last week, I was out of town for the workshop meeting. I honestly think that we need people in the office, we need a physical presence in the office, so
No, I will vote accordingly to that. I mean, that's
This
just,
is different than the other.
no, you still need somebody, we don't have the money for both. I mean, the way I'm looking at it, we don't have the money for both.
This
And it's
is
a year, I know it's a year contract, correct?
about 60% of what we were spending for Harry, but we're not getting all the things that Harry did. But
Exactly.
what it does is as you can see, we're paying out, and I sign every check. And you know what it's like, I sign a stack of checks that's 2 inches high every 3 or 4 weeks. So we have to have somebody to enter all those payables, write the checks, collate the bills, because I won't sign them without the bills, and then we sign them, and then they have to be stuffed and go out the door. We don't have time to train someone. Harry, we got 2 weeks' notice. We need somebody that's a professional, that's already trained, that knows QuickBooks, that's an accounting professional to start immediately.
Can we afford not to?
No,
Can we
In my
afford,
opinion.
can we afford not to have the documentation and step back and not have all the records again?
No.
no. So we did talk to 2 companies. We talked to another company today. They don't have municipal experience. The rate that they quoted us was on a per item basis, so the more work they do, the more it costs us. But they did give us some parameters that made it look like it won't cost us on an annual basis more than $17,000. So,
By extending Missy's hours, that,
We have a motion on the floor here. We're gonna discuss this all
yeah, this
over again.
no, this is a motion
There's a
on the
motion on the
floor.
floor. We can't go back and relive every little thing that comes in.
no, but under remarks, a point of order, I got the right to speak.
That's not the part of the motion. There's a motion on the floor.
You asked for remarks.
That's it's part of the motion, though. It's not. There's a motion on the floor retained to that. The vote.
Are we allowed to question any motions?
Hey, the microphone works.
It does.
I think mine does.
Motion on the floor. Any other questions?
So we are allowed to ask a question?
You are.
Good.
That's my question. We extend Missy, cover that gap? You can do that.
We could, but that's not the motion on the floor. Did you have a question, Mr. Brown?
I just had comments. Just had comments. Can we afford to go back into not having the work done? We can't afford to get far behind.
No, not with 2 months to go.
I do have one question. I mean, I see the need to bring somebody in now, do it right away. Is there a possibility of a lesser contract, a 3-month or 6-month contract? That way we can look to bring somebody maybe in. They locked in on this year thing. I mean, I understand the necessity of having it done now.
Oh, I do too, but I mean.
But as a year's contract is, I'd like to see us eventually get somebody in here.
I did address this with bookbinders, according to their contract with anybody they deal with, it's a minimum of 1 year, and then it could go month to month after that. They're not willing to bend on the 1 year. We're not talking 40 hours a week, we're talking maybe 15 hours a week.
And that would be an actual person that would come in
It would
and.
be an actual same person, that's a CPA that would come in and well-versed in QuickBooks, would get to know our system, how our chart of accounts is, and to make sure that things are reconciled every time end of the month. I was hoping to have a short term, but they're not willing to do that. The other firm we spoke with, your CFO has no interest in government work. To identify a person, a qualified person from beginning to end, would be the better part of 4 to 6 months. If it's properly and professionally done.
We can't do on-the-job training at this point.
No.
Okay.
Just one more question. We are going to address putting somebody else in the office, an office staff, once we start doing the budget.
Right.
That
We
would
are.
be formulated.
This isn't gonna replace that.
Yeah,
That's not my intentions either.
yeah, we do need someone down
Because
now.
bookbinders isn't gonna answer the phone.
They're here.
They're just to do
one function.
It's just a function, that's it.
Right.
Okay, any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Number 3. Motion to adopt resolution number 2014-5, authorizing the submittal of a funding application to the local government academy and to enter into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement among Homestead, Munhall, and West Homestead to be included within the funding application for the development of a multi-municipal comprehensive plan.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Foss, do we have a second? Second by Mr. Ballas. Bob, you just want to go into a little detail. We did in our work session, to let people know what that is about.
We talked about this in comments on agenda items. We did this. We explained it to Dawn. Did we not?
No, this was a different one.
There's 2 intergovernmental.
Okay, sorry.
The state of Pennsylvania does not require but encourages the municipalities to adopt and or update comprehensive development plans every 10 years. The last time Munhall did one was about 12 years ago, along with West Homestead and Homestead. I met with my counterparts in Homestead and West Homestead. Both councils are considering this month as well. So it's time to update a comprehensive plan and to do it on a multi-municipal basis. The reason why this is on the agenda now is because the deadline for submitting a funding application to the local government academy is November 1st. Part of that application package includes a resolution and an intergovernmental cooperation agreement document. That's why it's here now. We will also go after Allegheny County as well as Department of Community and Economic Development probably into year 2015 to secure the necessary dollars to actually implement the beginning of the comprehensive plan, which may not happen until summer or this time next year.
Okay, that's the explanation of why we're going to make this motion. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion is unanimous.
Number 4, motion to adopt resolution number 2014-6, approving the acquisition of the Munhall Borough parcel 132K133, known as 3440 York Street, by a Munhall resident through the Allegheny County Vacant Property Program.
That's Mary Shipe's property. She's taken care of it now for probably 40 years. She keeps it immaculate, probably something should have been done years ago. That's Mary's property with us.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Shields, second by Mr. Engels. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimous.
Number 5, motion to advertise ordinance number 1567, approving an intergovernmental cooperation agreement for the forming, establishing, and joining the Tri-Cog Land Bank.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ballas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Shields. Discussion on the motion.
I have a lot of questions.
You have the floor, Mr. Bryant.
Okay. This land bank procedure that we're talking about joining, this is to join the land bank?
Yes.
It's to advertise for the ordinance to join the land bank.
So is it indeed to join the land bank?
Well, it's to advertise. We vote next month on actually.
But the ordinance is in your matrix, which,
So we all should be aware then what the cost is involved to the borough? What's the cost involved to the borough if we join the land bank, and what's it gonna cost us?
the land bank, if and when it gets off the ground, which would probably be late summer of 2015, according to my understanding, that the cost to any municipality would be the 5% of the value of delinquent real estate property.
For the prior year.
For the prior year.
So would that be this year then?
Yes.
For 2014.
Right.
For 15, it would be the 14 uncollected, 5%.
And what, in round numbers, what would that be for this year then?
I think we figured out about $38,000 to $40,000.
Okay, so if we do that, does it cost us any fees? That is the fee? Is there any other blanket fees above that and beyond that?
We don't believe there's any accessibility, but that's why we talked about potentially tabling this motion, because we weren't certain that it couldn't be accessible.
That's why I was surprised to see it today.
Well, it's on here so that we could discuss it in a public forum. I think the other issue with the land bank, while it's a good idea, and we probably should at some point adopt being included with the other municipalities and school districts that do this, understand that land banking takes property and parks property for acquisition by private owners and developers. So if you happen to have a really dilapidated property next to your property, don't think that the land bank is going to grab that property at the direction of borough officials, because even if we direct the land bank to take a specific property, which represents maybe the worst piece of blight in town, which we can all name 3 or 4, that's not the property that they're going to be taking initially. They're going to be taking viable property that can be flipped and turned quickly, because they'll make a profit on it to help fund the land bank. So I have some reservations, because I was hoping, fighting blight would start with the worst property, and it doesn't. In this instance, it's going to start with the best of the worst. So I have my own reservations too with the legislation as proposed.
So just thinking about this here, the $35,000 that we would pay them for joining their land bank for next year, that doesn't really guarantee us of them taking any properties.
Correct.
So they may just not even take any properties, and we still owe them $35,000 for that.
Correct.
So I think it's a bad deal for the borough, honestly. I'm not for it. I have a lot more questions to ask. I think this should be tabled. I think this shouldn't even be voted on.
I'll bring a motion to table.
I'll rescind my motion to,
Well, if you rescind your motion, then we don't need to.
I wasn't here for the discussion last week that you guys had. I was here the previous month when Ann Lewis was here.
Does anybody want to, the motion is withdrawn? Any more discussion, Mark?
So we can have a little discussion.
Okay, we'll move on. Here on number 6. Number 6.
Number 6, a motion to advertise ordinance number 1568, approving an intergovernmental cooperation agreement, establishing a regional uniform construction code appeals board, approving a contract, and authorizing its execution.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ballas, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ingles. Any more discussion? This was discussed earlier.
I have questions.
Question, Mr. Brennan?
Yes, I'm not for this. I think that this should be brought before our own community first, before we join a separate group with people, residents from not in Munhall, deciding on what's happening in Munhall. I think as a last resort, we should go to this move. Until it's proven that we cannot have a board of our own, why should we go to Homestead per se and West Homestead to have them look at our property views?
Or it could be any community in the Mon Valley that joins.
Well, there you go.
I'm with Rick on this. I want to know that Munhall would have a seat on that board.
It says in the bylaws on page
But
37.
we're not guaranteed a seat, are we?
I don't think it.
By any means.
What's it say, Brian?
Municipal appointment of members, each participating municipality, if it desires, may appoint one member at large, a member, and one alternate member to the joint UCC appeals board. However, irrespective of whether a participating municipality appoints or declines to appoint a member or an alternate member to the joint UCC appeals board, all decisions of the joint UCC appeals board shall be binding upon such participating municipality, even though the participating municipality is not represented by a voting member from its own municipality or the joint UCC appeals board. In other words, they're saying you have the right to either appoint or not to appoint. It's up to council to appoint.
We have a seat.
So we will have a seat then.
According to.
That's what I said.
according to the bylaws.
Bob, is there a deadline to have this done? I mean,
The reason it's up here now, from what I understand, we're the last community in the valley to take any action on this. How many have and how many don't, I don't know. It's my understanding that a good many have. So it's a matter of just putting it to a vote and moving on.
Is it required to have an appeals board?
Yes.
Yes.
It is required under the Pennsylvania Construction Code and the Uniform Construction Code Act, Pennsylvania Construction Act and the Uniform Construction Code, that every municipality that opted in to enforce the Uniform Construction Code, as was enacted in 2004, must have an appeals board.
So we're out of compliance for 10 years?
From my understanding, you do have an appeals board now, it's just never met. You never really want to meet. You hope to resolve your differences in the field. I don't know who's on your appeals board, but the municipalities have an option of having their own or joining with other municipalities to have a regional one to grab the breadth of professionalism that may be available in multi-municipalities as opposed to one. That's
Exactly.
I understand that.
That's if there are how many people, you reach
Yes.
out, you can get a lot more.
I thoroughly understand that.
No, I'm for it. As long as we make sure we get one seat on this.
Don't let this scare you. It's not like they're gonna, the boogeyman's gonna come and make us do things we don't have to do.
I have one vote. I vote no.
it's not time to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But now it's time to vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
No.
opposed, we have one opposed, the motion carries.
Lost it on my screen here. Now I got it right here. Okay, number 7. Take a deep breath. Motion to approve payment for 2014 police pension minimum municipal obligation of $326,878. 2014 non-uniform pension minimum municipal obligation of $214,749. And for 2015 police pension minimum municipal obligation of $330,030. And 2015 non-uniform pension minimum municipal obligation of $200,357.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion?
Do we have the money to pay this?
Well, actually, this is a motion to recognize that we have to pay these. We don't actually have the money to make these payments. Typically, these minimum municipal obligations are issued to us late in the year, like in November, so that we can budget those. Our 2014 MMO did not come to us this year until after our budget was set. So it came in March, and that money was not budgeted. We did budget to pay the 2012 and 2013 obligations. They were paid this year. And we just got the 2015 MMO about, what, a month ago or so?
It was about late summer.
Late summer. So all told, it's over $1 million in pension obligations. We recognize that we have those, and payments will be made. We do receive and have received approximately $475,000 from the state, which offsets that. But needless to say, we have a large pension obligation next year, which will represent about 20% of our budget. So this motion is just to recognize that those payments, those MMOs were calculated and that they will need paid.
So it's not an approval to pay it?
We're not actually making the payment.
So this is misspoken here, really? This is just recognizing that
Well,
we
they
have
have to,
this
they have to
money.
go into the pension accounts.
We have to move the money, the state money over that we did receive.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So So for next year, it's 530,000 total, and we have 250 of that was given to us by the state,
Correct.
correct?
For 2000.
Do we know what the contributions from employees will be total?
About,
Ballpark?
about $90,000, $85,000 to $90,000.
I thought it would have been more than extras from the police.
It's not.
So it's gonna leave us, what, another 190 to make up, somewhere around there?
Well, actually, it's $1.1 million. We're getting 475 back over the 2 years. This is 2 years.
Right.
Plus 180 in contributions. So it's $1.1 million less
475?
475 and 180.
We estimate, Chief, for the police in 2015, $87,451 contribution from employees.
So we'll leave about $350,000 net to pay. But that is the $1.1 million, a little less than $1.1 million is the actual total obligation for pensions. So with that, any more questions on that? Motion on the floor to approve. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Appoint Steve Shapinka, we'll change the spelling on that to Steel Valley Historical Architectural Review Board.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ballas. Second by Mr. Ingles. We have to have representatives. We advertised, Steve expressed interest. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Motion to pay bills for the period September 16, 2014 through October 15, 2014, as in the profit and loss detail report summarized as follows. Administration, $33,549.78. Police, $58,493.92. Fire, $19,989.14. Health and sanitation, $15,330.60. Public Works, $27,479.42. Recreation, $638.10, and miscellaneous, $209,229.32, for a grand total of $364,710.28.
Motion by Mr. Ballas, second by Mr. Shields. Discussion on the motion?
That was me.
Mr. Bowles,
I did. I'm getting sometimes.
sorry to slip.
That's all right. That's all right.
At any rate, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Payroll for the period September 12, 2014 through October 9, 2014. As follows: September 25, 2014, $111,719.60. October 9, 2014, $116,346.59, for a total of $228,066.19.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Foss. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Ingles. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously. Mayor, you had did you want to add this? There was a reason we tabled that stop sign. It was on
Yes, I would like to request a stop sign on Caroline, I guess that's heading south, that center, due to the safety of the intersection. I'd like to ask for a motion on that.
The motion has to be, is it going north, south, how's it going, so we do it right?
Sit
Going south.
South, it's all right? I'll make that motion there.
There was a motion, the last meeting. We tabled it. We tabled it, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, read the motion, how it's going to read.
Motion to add a stop sign at the corner of Center Street and Caroline Street, effective immediately.
Correction, stop signs on Caroline, not center. That's the way you say it.
On Caroline heading south.
Heading south. That's the
Motion's corrected to read on Caroline heading south. Any other discussion? We discussed it last month. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously. Any other items?
Yeah, I have one more thing. I passed out to you the proposed dues schedule, and this is for your edification. The Steel Rivers municipal dues, which is a joint, the merger we're talking about with the Steel Valley Club, and also the Steel Rivers Club.
I saw that.
And it's a schedule of how the dues, believe me, this took quite a while to accomplish this. So I'm seeking input, but at the same time, this is about as good as it gets. So you can read it over, and you gotta check, just mention, there's a lot of little towns from these other communities on there. So you can check their population, check their assessed valuation. I think I've kind of highlighted some of the ones that, the major towns like Munhall, McKeesport, and even White Oak there. So look it over. I think this is about as good as it's gonna get. And, you know, if you got any questions or you got any remarks that you'd like to pass on, pass them on to me and I'll bring them up.
I did have one question, Mayor. How come our dues are so high? We got the highest dues on there.
Because you were the biggest town in 2014 in the eight communities.
Biggest by what? Biggest by what measure?
By population.
McKeesport has 19,000.
Well, that's the other merger, that's the other side. The merger.
This is including the Keysport for next year. We are not included in, we were the number one,
And he's still Valley call, we're number one in Still
when
Valley.
When West Mifflin left, we became the biggest one. So last year we had to carry 8 communities.
We were $30,000.
Burden.
That's right.
The only thing I would like to see is our population is a lot closer to White Oak than the Keysport. I'd like to see us drop a little bit. Population-wise, we only have 3,000 less, and the money's the same, you know. We're paying the same as McKeesport, and they have almost 20,000, and we have about 11,500.
I'll just tell you this, Robert, this is as good as it gets, believe me. There's 3 major towns on here, and White Oak is, population-wise, they're a lot less. They're like 4,000 less than we are, or 3,000. But look at the assessed valuation, which took into consideration while we were doing this. And if you look at the assessed valuation, our assessed valuation is almost as much as McKeesport's.
Well, we're still closer to
White Oak is almost identical.
We're still closer to White Oak.
But their population is about, hey, this is all within this thing.
Well, I'd like to see the formula, on how that came. What's the formula?
The formula is this. The formula is trying to do an obvious job for the smaller communities to keep them together. Because there's tons of smaller communities. The bigger communities, we're trying to establish something. I know these got 19,000, we got about 1,000 for our population.
Well, you said our population was higher than White Oak by 3,000. So that's why we pay $4,000 more. So McKeesport has a higher assessed valuation and almost twice the population, and they get to pay the same amount of dues as we do. I want to see that formula. That sounds like voodoo economics.
Well, it is.
As long as Munhall pays more than their fair share, it's all good.
I would just like to see us closer to White Oak.
Well,
We need me and Rob agree.
you're gonna have to set one thing or another, come to the meeting, and express your sentiments. But 2 towns are going to have to carry most of the load. And after 4 hours on this, I can tell you, all the other communities are pretty much, we get more plugging in and back and forth.
Well, I'm sure, but wouldn't it be more fair to come up with a mathematical formula and
You
equation?
do it and I'll accept it.
Instead of just plugging in numbers on, well, Munhall, yeah, they'll go along, they'll just pay more.
No, it wasn't just go ahead and plug it on. It was 4 hours of moving
I'm sure it was,
things
but it
around.
doesn't look like we did that good in the 4 hours.
Well, we certainly did.
Well, yeah, we got the highest dues.
You do not.
We're tied for the highest dues. How
Tied
can
for the highest dues and.
we, with a city that has almost 20,000 people,
And your assessed valuation is what?
is less than,
20,000.
and it's
They got
$1,000 more than White Oak, but it's $4,000. It's 40% more on the assessment.
Well, then you write the formula and I'll present it to.
Well, I could write a formula that would be more fair than that.
Well, go ahead.
I'll be glad to.
I'll challenge you to that. I'll invite you to the council meeting with these groups and I'll show you what we went through.
Well, you said they just started plugging numbers in and
We
going
had-
back and
we
forth.
We had a screen to where we started to move them back and forth to try and make it equitable for the smaller towns and the larger towns. The
Well, I don't
only
feel
three
like it's
large-
equitable.
Well, you tell me what Munhall should pay and tell me what McKeesport should pay and I'll present for you.
I just feel we should be somewhere in the middle of White Oak and
McKeesport.
Closer to 12. More like 12.
I agree.
I feel we should be
I
somewhere in
don't
the
think
middle.
does anybody on the council think we got a fair shake on this deal? Rick?
No.
Harv? No, there's nobody up here that thinks we got a fair shake on this deal.
And,
Are we committed to the merger?
no, we're working on it though.
Well, there's some work to do.
Well, then I invite you all to please come to the council and state your case. Because when you're going through something like this, well, let me just say, this is a tough situation here. You only have 3 towns that have over 7,000 people. 3 towns. All the other ones, and you're trying to make a number, you're trying to make $115,000. You got 3 towns. The other populations are 1,400, 3,300, 30, and you're trying to see that you don't penalize the smaller towns so that they stay in the cost. Otherwise, maybe they'll drop out.
They'll go to South
They'll
Hillsville.
drop out. Well, hey, that's their prerogative.
Right.
And if you think South Hills presents more to you than this town does, I suggest you take a look at it too, but you get the same service.
I'm not criticizing the call. I'm criticizing whoever
Yes,
came
you
up
are.
with this formula. I'm
Yes, you
not.
are. Yes, you are.
I'm not.
Well, then,
You
come on.
justify it. Then, Mayor, justify how they came up with the numbers. And
The only 2 large towns here are Munhall and Keysburg.
Where is this call going to meet?
Well, we're going to meet where we meet now.
So they're going to all encompass and move into the
They're
same
going to
call?
move wherever, and they'll have, moved to the, we've been meeting at the Eaton Park, they'll all come. And they have a board too, though, for you.
Well,
The county is very happy with.
the Steel Rivers has a meeting place.
Yeah, they.
They don't meet at the Homestead?
No, they do not,
building
not
here?
at the time, no, not at this time.
They rent a spot, I think, Turtle Creek, they rent a spot
No,
over
they,
at Turtle.
they're in McKeesport.
Somewhere, okay, they rent a spot there.
Yeah.
I think what you're asking, where they,
I'm asking where they meet and where their offices are.
yeah, well, Turtle Creek is over in McKeesport, Turtle Creek Valley, they rent some off from
That's not
McKeesport.
Turtle Creek Valley.
Well, that's,
Twin Rivers.
Twin Rivers, I'm sorry,
That's not Turtle Creek Valley.
right, I'm sorry.
I challenge you all to come up with a better formula. That's all. And if you can make $115,000, and I see they got 113, so that's 750.
And furthermore, Mayor, I'm looking at last year's dues,
Yeah?
and Munhall had the highest dues of anybody on there.
That's
20
because you were one of 8 communities.
We were in a different cause.
We're in a totally different outlook, for God's sake. We were the biggest. West Mifflin left us holding the bag. West Mifflin was the biggest, and they were paying $20-some thousand, and Munhall was paying about 14 before that. That was all right. Well, you're back to 14.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. All right, well, it's something that we need to talk about.
You need, yes, you need discussion, and I would like to invite you to the COG meeting.
When is that?
First Thursday in November. I'd like you to be there and express your points. Because
Okay.
it's up to you whether you continue or if you're against the merger. The county's all happy about the merger because we're gonna be able to join all these towns together and be, you know, as far as finances go, do a hell of a lot better.
I'm sure, you know, they're building a ramp to the Cary Works in Rankin,
Sure.
but we'll pay the most dues
To who?
to the COG. I'm just wondering why we can't get a bridge.
What the hell's the club got to do with land and ranking?
Do we have any other new business or?
I have just two quick ones. I would
Absolutely
bring up.
nothing, you're talking oranges and bananas.
Well, you know what, it might be oranges and bananas, but you know, maybe it just needs to be said, I'm not talking about the COG, but you and I went to the meeting, and the bottom line is, there's a barren waterfront over there, and the county's gonna use their full force of their resources to build a bridge and a ramp.
I'm sure.
And there was $2 million spent on a flyover to barren land in McKeesport.
I'm sure.
And we have a $400 million development that people can't get to, but we can't get the resources to do it. I'm just asking why.
They can't get there safely either, remember, that's the whole thing.
That's what I'm after, changing that, well, you were there, changing that dog leg, taking care of those businesses down there. They're the ones that are gonna suffer if we do certain things. And we'll make sure, you know.
I'm with you on that.
Well, you know.
So we agree too.
But let's talk about what we were talking about, and you were talking, I don't know what you were talking about, bananas before.
I got two real quick ones. Recreation meeting next Tuesday, October 21st. Two main points to discuss. We've invited baseball, Little League baseball, softball, youth basketball, soccer there. I'm gonna try to look for contact for football yet to come up, but I really don't know anybody there.
Would that run next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday,
What
yeah,
time?
6:30. And then we'll also, the main topic of discussion will be there, is if we're gonna do a community day next year, we gotta start talking about it now and start planning now. Rick's emailed me, he's interested in being involved with it again. We do need to get something started back up.
I agree.
In Munhall like that.
I agree.
And one last topic, maybe a letter to go out to Harry, thanking him for his service. He did come in here when we really were in need, and, you know, we were not in good shape. He stepped up, did some good on-the-job training and learned quickly. And congratulating him on his new position, but also thanking him for his service to Munhall.
Agreed.
Last question, jail cells. Rick, you wanna say anything
Well,
about
the
it?
curtain's,
I'm waiting.
the curtain is still down.
No, it isn't.
I've been in here, it hasn't been up.
It's
Hasn't been
up.
up.
It's up. We have your, yes, it is. It's up as far as it goes.
It was down this afternoon. We were both here.
Once they make.
12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
It was down.
Well, did you bring somebody else in so we can lift it up?
Not yet,
Not yet, well.
not yet.
We'll hire a couple guys to lift it up.
I have another question. When are we proposing to finance the budget talks about the budget fall? When are you planning on doing that?
That'll be occurring probably toward the end of this month into November.
Will we put that out on the web, or how will you announce that?
Yeah, we'll have a schedule, we'll do that. We have to collect the numbers from our department heads. We hope to have some of that done this week, early next week, as well as some department chairs. I'll put together a preliminary budget, and then we'll have our workshops, have yet to be scheduled, but they will be public workshops.
Okay, good.
So that'll occur
Before the next meeting?
and after the next meeting too, yes,
Okay.
before and after.
Oh, yes.
I got comfort.
Thank you.
I'll entertain
Have
a
a nice
motion to
one.
adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wall. All those in favor?
Ah.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.